All right, team players, and welcome. Today's going to be an awesome episode. Obviously, we're kicking off a brand new week here, Thursday Night Football. We got a ton of questions pouring in here before we even start today. We thank you all for using the deep dive and quick hitter system that we've implemented here at Local Football Flavor. So without further ado, let's go through, answer some amazing questions. As you know, Bob will be joining me here momentarily, and let's make some greatness happen. So yeah, before we dive into all of the comments here, which we got, which by the way, thank you all for doing this before we even kick off. The quick hitters are going to be extra quick. I do want to point out a couple of macro things that have happened that Bob has touched upon as well as we've gone through the season here. One of which is the draft capital you spent at the beginning of the year is completely irrelevant to the conversations now. And I want to do a quick little breakdown of things that have changed from the preseason projections, particularly within the world of the total points scored for an offense, because obviously that is a major factor for how many fantasy points you have. It's a direct correlation to the amount of points that you put up on offense to the amount of fantasy points your team puts up overall. So a couple of teams that are drastically doing better in their points for them per projection, actually it's off the chart, is Indy, and that's really no surprise. They've been doing great, and they're projected based on Vegas over a point more than started, which let me tell you is massively significant. And then likewise, the one in reverse is the Bengals. So we're going to dive into that a little bit more as the show goes on, but we are going to start here with the quick hitters. And we get waiting here for Bob to get here. He's there immediately in school, ready to teach you all. Jumping in with the first question. Bob, we're flying through quick hitters to try to catch up. We have a lot of them. So, Jason, hitting it almost the moment that I put this thing live on YouTube. Love it. Drop the questions in, and we'll rewind. You hit us on the replay. Love it. So you traded Ladd, Myers, Spear, and Swifty for his Nico and Marvin Harrison Jr. Did you win? I think it's kind of hard to fight that you didn't at this point. Just looking at the trade itself, Myers and Ladd are both vastly underperforming, and the upside that is Nico kind of rules the world, and your running back room is no worse for wear losing Swift. So I think you won this trade. You did what you should have.
I think right now, like when we talk about win-losing trades, I think that initially speaking, you can say, this is a win right now. Marvin Harrison Jr. is still dealing with the concussion. But again, when I look at your starting lineup, it's Nico, London, Sutton, or Evans, whichever one is healthy there between Evans and Terry. And Nico, you're playing the rest of the season. London, you're playing the rest of the season, most likely. Swift has a good schedule up ahead of him, but you probably were not playing him over Barkley or Kyron or Javonte anyway with Rico and White there. I think you got the most that you could for Ladd, Myers, and Swift. I don't think at this point in time we have seen nothing from Myers to know that this is going to change, even if a trade happens. So I do like that trade for you. Jason, start three. One must be a wide receiver. Ricky Pearsall, if he plays, Io Manor or Wan'Dale Robinson, Pollard, Vidal, Rico is an option, but Chuba back, so probably won't play him. I think that, a lot of people are a little bit hesitant with Rico right now.
Which I'm on that bus.
But even with that in mind, one of the things that you kind of need to look at too is that depending on how they play these running backs, depending on if it's running back one, running back two, a guy like Rico Dowdle as RB2 if he was the RB2 on the day for the Carolina Panthers, obviously isn't going to have a good day. But if he's RB1 for the majority of those snaps, he's probably going to have a better day. Rico's a hard start this week for a lot of people, and I get it. So if I'm looking at these numbers just the way they are right now, I'm probably on Vidal out of the running back group there. And there's many reasons why, but I do want you to know that I don't think Vidal or Pollard is exceptionally going to be a great play this week. Both are in really tough matchups, but I think that the Chargers matchup is going to be very highly competitive. But again, the rush attempts that the Colts give up to the number one running back is only about 12. So I'm not expecting him to get 18, 20 touches in that game like he got last time. So he's going to have to make do with a little bit less. So you might see a stat line of like 60 yards, 80 yards, and maybe a touchdown if they get down there. So I do like Vidal over Pollard and
absolutely.
And slightly over Rico this week. If Ricky Pearsall plays, I think Ricky's a great play. For anybody asking about Ricky Pearsall, there is absolutely no good news out there right now that tells us if Pearsall is going to play or not this week.
But if he does play, Kittle's back. So you got to weigh that.
Yeah, you do. But I think all the parts together kind of help each other out a little bit more. If Wan'Dale Robinson, though, is the number one wide receiver on the week for the Giants, he's not a start. We just saw what happened with Garrett Wilson. We know that Wan'Dale Robinson is, a merchant of receptions. But if he's on Surtain, there's probably not going to be a lot of receptions.
Surtain doesn't go in the slot, so Wan'Dale will still be a slot machine.
I get it, but also it's a little. I think it's a tricky matchup. Regardless of.
Oh no, it is. I'm not fighting that, but here's the problem with this one, Jason. This is a quick hit, and we got to keep this moving.
I like Iron Man.
Vidal's the only obvious start of this group. Pollard for me is the sit. Because I don't like how Spears is jumping into it. I know we got a bunch of questions about Spears coming up, so I'm trying to get ahead of this a little bit. Spears has taken the majority now from Pollard, and I have never been on the Pollard bus ever, and I admit that is a total bias I have had since his days in Dallas. So for me, it has to be Vidal. If Ricky plays, I'm going with Pearsall, and then I'm probably going with Wan'Dale because even though he's got a bad matchup, slot machine still cash, and that's what he is.
Well, I mean, that didn't happen with the Jets last week, so we would like to see about that. I'm on Io Manor and Vidal. Yeah, I'm on Io Manor, Vidal, and Ricky Pearsall. If I had to transition back to say Rico, depending on how that split goes, I can't see it being like a full 50-50 right now. I would probably lean a little bit Rico because it's a decent enough matchup there.
So, Jason, answer your question here about handcuffs. Of this group, Spears from Tennessee, Miller from the Saints, Tootin Jacksonville, Corum from the Rams, and Algier from Atlanta. I would say Spears without a doubt because he's taken the majority of the load off already. So he's actually arguably now a starter, not a handcuff. So Spears will be the first of that group. And speculative play, as much as I've been telling everyone not to do it, would be Miller because if Kamara does get moved, there's a pathway to him to play.
Here's the order. It's Spears, it's Miller, it's Algier, and the other two are not on the menu right now.
Yep, that's pretty much the answer.
For anybody wondering, and again, guys, we do answer every question here at Local Football Flavor. So if you don't hear your question answered right away, we start at the beginning and we roll through to the very end. But if you're looking at any of these running backs right now, Miller has a pathway to be very successful this year. This is just an aside to this question. Anybody asking about Miller, I would go pick up Miller if my bench allowed it and I had pieces to drop. If I had like a third tight end or a second quarterback and I already have my quarterback have the bye, of course I'm going to go after one of these guys. Tootin right now doesn't have a lot of value. Etienne has not been getting a lot of yards in the last 2 weeks. So you could see a shift coming in that. And Corum, there's no shift unless Kyron goes down.
Yeah.
And right now, the speculation that even if Kyron goes down, Corum wouldn't get the majority of the work with still Jarquez Hunter there. So
does the league just hate Michigan running backs?
And Algier to a degree, Algier is a good play to stash. Because Bijan's elite, but they still give work to Algier. So those are the three that I would say.
That's part of what makes them elite. So
this next question, Jason, I don't like either this week. So
that's fair, but for rest of the season,
I don't like either this week.
Rest of the season, personally, I'm going Dart. And here's the entire rationale of why. Because I know the Giants are playing Dart every single second that they can.
Yeah.
And the Jets, I do not believe are invested in anything except for failure. So therefore, I'm going Dart for stability. And that's because I'm a guy who goes in the tent every game.
Week 9, Fields is going to have a bye, and you could see a radical shift in the quarterback room after week 9 if they're 0-9. I could not, or if they're 0-8, I cannot see them continue to play Fields if they have that record because they'll want to try out other quarterbacks. and see where their future holds, because Fields might not be that guy, and he's not proving that he is that guy right now.
Fields is not that guy, but they also might think Fields could get him the first pick. So there's that.
He will get some good fantasy days, but the wins will not come for them. So I'm on Dart because, like Joe said, you're going to play him, and he's going to play all the time. This week or rest of the season, Ertz, Ingram, Schultz, Fant, Theo, Johnson. So this week it's Ingram out of that group of guys, followed by Ertz. Now again, before
Schultz, man.
Before this last week, Ertz was dead in the water with Marcus Mariota.
Oh, sure. Sure was.
Coming back, though, with Jane Daniels coming back, they kind of breathed life into Ertz, but Ertz is still a situational touchdown play. He's going to get some receptions, and those receptions aren't going to go for a bunch of yards. He was in a good spot this week, but you could very likely see very good weeks and not so good weeks from him if he's not scoring that touchdown. So Ingram right now getting enough volume after being dead to rights for the first couple of weeks too with an injury. So I think that right now this week Ingram has the best matchup out of that grouping of guys, followed by Ertz with the second best matchup. Theo Johnson will have leverage at some point during the year.
I like Theo Johnson's long-term prognostication. He's a young guy. Giants are trying to build something there, and rookie quarterbacks check it down a lot. So on that note, by the way, they're not letting Knicks push the ball like crazy, and I think Ingram is about to take off. So if I was going to go less of the year, and this does have bias on who's the better actual football player, I would go Ingram, Theo, Schultz, then Ertz. I'm having a hard time not seeing last week as just a blip.
And the idea here too, for a guy like Noah Fant, for everybody wondering about Noah Fant, is that this room for the whole totality of Cincinnati, it's not like your usual room. There are like 3 guys there. Okay. They could easily get numbers from whatever quarterback's throwing them the ball. So Fant is not a comfortable fantasy play by any stretch of the imagination.
He never has been. So, you know what Noah Fant is, Bob? Noah Fant is the tight end version of Bigsby. Everyone has wanted him to be a thing, but he's never been a thing. All right, dude, Jason, you must have been doing nothing at work, and you just talked to us, and we love that as our team players.
Start one this week. Start one this week, or rest of the season. Fields, Caleb, Danny Dimes, Darnold, Love. Joe, I'll let you.
It's got to be Danny Dimes for me, because he'll run it in, and he's stealing rushing touchdowns. I mentioned before the things start, no offense is outperforming their preseason projections from Vegas's perspective than the Colts. The Colts he's putting up points when they're winning, and I would go with Danny Dimes. Because I see no reason for them to stop winning.
I actually have Caleb higher this week, Jason, in my rankings. Caleb is higher this week. On a long-term situational play for the whole year, I'm on Daniel Jones. But in terms of like this week specifically, the problem with Daniel Jones is that if Jonathan Taylor gets going, there's no reason to take the ball out of Jonathan Taylor's hands. They will do it occasionally, and he has a good connection with Tyler Warren, but the matchup is good enough for Caleb this week that you can lean on Caleb this week, but I think rest of season that I'm on Daniel Jones. I do like Love, but as we've seen, they could also lean on Josh Jacobs, and Love doesn't have to do anything, although he's doing modestly better. The projection is slightly higher for Caleb Williams this week, though, in a pretty good matchup.
The thing with Green Bay is he's such a good coach. He does what it takes to win, and he doesn't care about numbers.
And this week right here, and on this question specifically,
I'm going Hunter Henry.
Hunter Henry's a good play. When you look at the rankings, guys, and when you look at the matchups for the week, and you look at targets, it's hard not to look Mason Taylor's way. We got dudded out last week in a matchup that wasn't so great. This matchup is a delicacy. If you've ever seen a tight end matchup before, this matchup is one that you could target. It's not one that you have to target, though, because it doesn't mean that he's going to play good. But they do give up the most fantasy points per game to tight ends outside of Sam Laporta. But they don't give up a lot of receptions. So the problem is that they give up a lot of touchdowns, but not a lot of receptions. And the other thing is that the Jets aren't moving the ball very well. So if they move the ball very well, then it's Taylor. If they're not, I'm on Zach Ertz. I think Hunter Henry has a good matchup too. But I think I think that the matchup in Dallas and Washington is going to lead to a lot more points than
it definitely does. And there's truth to that. I just think in the long run, you can make the argument Taylor's the only game in town he'll get shut down, which gets to this question here at Smitty asks, am I still starting Brees? You have to, because of you have to basically, because he's your flex. You're not going to have a flex better than Brees. But personally, I'm not starting Brees again until he's not a Jet. Probably not going to be till next year, but I'm not starting him again unless I have to.
So
here's kind of where you're at here, because you're not going to
think about Brees, right? Here's the thing about Brees is getting volume, right? And like, as long as Fields is not, and the thing about his 22 carries last week was that they came at the expense of Justin Fields' carries. So in a matchup with Denver, where Denver has been really good at stopping rushing quarterbacks, and that's why I worry about Jackson Dart this week. But when you look at what Fields can do, Brees Hall got 22 carries in that matchup because Fields couldn't run the ball. Brees is going to come back down to probably about 14 carries in this matchup, with maybe like 3 or 4 receptions somewhere in there. So that's a good flex number to be at. Now, when you look at Rachaad White, for example, right, and you're like, oh, well, if he's running back 1 for them this week, is it a great matchup? No, it's not a great matchup statistically, but he's going to get around 14-ish to 15-ish looks as well. If I had the choice, I'm probably looking at if Vita Vea is playing, I'm looking at the health of that defensive line, because if I'm looking at this and I'm saying, okay, Montgomery could absolutely open up some spots versus this Tampa Bay. So I'd be on Monty and Brees, because I think Brees and White are probably going to get the same amount of volume. But if you think White's going to get the touchdown, then you lean White. But
I think Tampa's just going to score more points.
The volume is going to be the same based upon the numbers that I'm looking at. The volume looks like it's going to be almost exactly the same, and the number difference between those two players is not very high. If you look at the ceilings are about the same as well. Monty comes in slightly lower because it's projecting that Gibbs is doing a lot more, but that doesn't necessarily have to be the case. I think you're more like going bell cow though. If you want 2 bell cows, it's White and Brees. If you want to go with touchdown potential, it's Monty and White. If you don't care about if you think Brees is going to get the touchdown, then it will be Monty and Brees, I think.
And I'm going with Monty and White because I don't believe that the Jets are going to get any yardage and you're going to key off and stopping Brees. It's how you would beat the Jets. So you lost Wilson and Buka. You need 2 receivers. It's getting ugly. So Malik Washington, Whittington in the Rams, Shepard in Tampa, or Tez. Dude, I think my feeling is Whittington stepped up last time there was receivers in LA. And it's a natural expectation of him coming back. For the Tampa receivers, I think you're missing the boat because the horses are returning. And when Evans playing this week, Evans is going to get it all. So I think by default, I'm left with Whittington and Washington. What do you think, Bob?
Washington's in a terrible matchup. I'm not starting Washington at all.
I know, but at least he's going to be on the field.
Here's the thing. When I look at the rest of these matchups that are on the board, Joe, and I'm looking for my wide receiver 1, I think Whittington's a good play this week with Nacua out. But it could very easily be if Tutu Atwell's healthy. Tutu Atwell has shown in this offense that he can be super productive as well.
Yeah, but that was only after Whittington was out too last year.
But I also think that Tutu could fill the role that Nacua has on the field. So I'm not saying that Whittington is going to get less volume or whatever, but I'm saying that I think that Tutu Atwell fills the role that they have Nacua in, which is that downfield kind of movement stretcher, okay? So when I look at this, I think Whittington's a good play. When it comes to the Tampa wide receivers, I'd lean on Tez. I'd lean on Tez for the choice that, Evans, again, if he comes back this week, still older, a little bit dinged up. They're going to have to move the ball downfield against this offense. I think that Tez or Cameron gives you the best chance to move that ball past the 20s, right? You're getting 10 yards at a time, getting a 20-yard downfield stretch. Tez Johnson's probably not going to get a lot of volume, though. Okay. So if you're looking for volume, none of these guys outside of Whittington are probably going to get volume. If you're
That's
looking
exactly
for
it. That's why Whittington's the safe play.
If you're looking for volume, Whittington's probably a good play this week. If you're looking for that extra juice, I think that Tez gets you that extra juice over Sterling Shepard, honestly. Same team, lost Bucky. Which running backs would you start? Dowdle, Gainwell, Monty, K9. It's a gross week, fellas. It's been gross.
Definitely Monty.
Yeah. Okay. So when we go in and just taking a look at the projections, Monty and Kenneth Walker project very, very similarly. Mm-hmm. And where you're going to get the extra juice from Montgomery is in a game script that could be competitive. Okay. So if the game script's competitive, you can absolutely see Montgomery getting 15 carries and doing good with those carries. When it comes to Zach Charbonnet and Ken Walker, we know they're splitting it basically 50-50. Mm-hmm. And when we look at the amount of where am I at here? The amount.
I just think the touchdown upside with Monty carries the day with Rico Dowdle and Gainwell not getting volume.
But listen to this, right? The on average, in terms of rushing attempts, Houston is offering about 20 rushing attempts a game to opposing rushers. If that's split 50-50, that's 10. Then
I don't think it's going to be split 50. The way that I foresee it is they're going to use Gibbs more in the receiving role. I also want to point out that Houston has had some very padded stats. They haven't really played good offenses yet.
No, I'm talking about K9 versus Houston, right? So, but then when you look at it and you see the backs that have been playing against Houston, they're not being targeted a lot. Only 4 total targets. So or 4 targets a game. So if you think that Ken Walker is going to get 12 carries and 3 of those targets, I think that he's a reasonable play, but I personally, I wouldn't start him this week. Monty, I think, is a good play, and Gainwell, if he gets the touches, he's in a fabulous matchup. But the question is, will he be the ball carrier when it matters the most for the Pittsburgh Steelers tonight?
And Thursday Night Football is weird.
I would lean into the weirdness tonight and start Kenny Gainwell and probably Montgomery. But if you don't like that Kenny Gainwell spot, then I think K9 is.
Oh, if it's start 2, it's Monty and K9 for me. Again, the volume. Again, the thing with the Houston defense is they're really statistically amazing, but they're yet to play a world beater offense. I mean, look, Baltimore without Lamar.
And I'm saying what I'm saying is that when you go in and you look at the numbers and you see like, okay, Houston has which is like one of the, in terms of how many fantasy points they've given up to quarterbacks, it's only about like 10 a game. So these Houston games are not good scoring offensive games for anybody outside of maybe Houston. When you look at the running backs are combining for about 19 total fantasy points. So you could lean into that. I'm just saying that K9 is going to have to do a lot with a little. Gainwell's probably going to have to do a lot with a little, and Dowdle's probably going to have to do a lot with a little as well. So if you like the explosiveness of K9, you can start Monty and K9. There's a lot of good reasons for that. But if you like the matchup, then I would start Gainwell. But if you like the explosiveness of K9, then I'd start K9. That's kind of my viewpoint of it.
I'm still going Monty. Monty gets good most touchdowns.
CC, same team. You did it again. I did it again. You did it again. Guys, and you'll see we're going down through the questions here. If you don't hear,
we're yet to get to actually kick off this episode, Bob. We got to actually start ordering the quick hitter system like we're supposed to.
We answer every question.
We will, but we got to get back to the quick hitter.
I currently have Waller, but Ertz
we're 30 minutes in and we haven't gotten to the question since we started.
All right, I'm dropping Jonnu. Is there a world where Jonnu, because of the matchup, can maybe be viable? I don't see it. It's a great matchup. It's a great matchup, but they're not giving it to tight ends enough.
No, they're not.
That's just they're
not even. Here's the other thing: is that Jonnu is actually the second most snapped getter tight end on the team. I said that really weird, but he's being out snapped by Darnell Washington. So the thing is that his time on the field is getting limited. They're kind of forcing it to him, kind of not. At the end of the day, it's a Tomlin offense. It's not going to be built for giving you fantasy.
He won't have a good day
walking back in that door.
He won't have a good day unless he's getting a touchdown.
Yeah,
you're going to look for you might get 3 or 4 receptions, 40 yards maybe, and that's like 8 points. So if you're okay with
he's
that,
basically
sure,
sicky right now.
Yeah, I don't like him. On a lighter note, my London over Debo play in the other league was a smash. Love it. Told you about that one. First time over 200 points. Bijan, Dowdle, London, Pickens, JD5. Fannin.
Love it.
I'll tell you this, guys. Fannin has a great matchup this week. I'm all in on Fannin this week. With Allen on a bye, which QB would you start, Rodgers or Penix, and who would you drop between Gainwell and Miller?
Gainwell's the one I would cut for sure because I want to keep Kendra Miller on my team at all costs.
Yeah, that's fair for your team here. You guys just heard me talking about Gainwell's potential start this week, but Joe, I understand where you're coming from with that. For me, I think this match is going to be like weirdly, stupidly competitive. Because is this in Pittsburgh tonight or is it in Cincinnati?
No, it's in Cincinnati.
Okay, so Steelers going on the road Thursday night. They've got all the juice behind them. It's a letdown spot if I've ever seen one for the Pittsburgh Steelers in my entire life.
It sure is. But we're projecting the Steelers to score more points, significantly more points than Atlanta. So
the spot is good.
Yeah, but here's the end of the day thing. Whenever you're talking about Thursday night football road teams, they either are blowing out a team at halftime or it ends up tightening up. And when the Steelers tighten up, they hand it off. It's just the way they always are. So I would go with Penix just for safety and a really aversion of playing Thursday night football players.
Yeah, and the projections I have are there's not much far apart there. Just understand that with potentially pieces coming back for San Francisco, that game script will be very different than potentially a Mac Jones 300-yard passing game script. So Penix could easily let you down. I think that Rodgers gets at least 2 touchdowns tonight, and I think Penix definitely gets 1. But I'm not sure he gets to 2 because you can easily lean on Bijan Robinson, and Bijan Robinson could go off like he did last week as well.
Yeah, but Bijan still catches them, though.
Steelers don't have that. Flex Spears or Goddard this week. This is a tough one.
Yeah, they're both all or nothings kind of guys, and I'd rather go with Goddard because the offense is infinitely better.
This is a tough one. I'm on Goddard because I do feel that the New England defense is a bit better, and there's a pathway that they're going to just have to keep throwing the ball. Maybe that lands in Spears' hands. Spears' value this week is definitely in the receptions category, which New England against running backs isn't very, very good at. So he's definitely a play there. And Goddard, Joe, again, we'll see probably a couple of questions about Dallas Goedert as well. The matchup is good. So you can easily lean on
fundamentally the offense on the field much more. There's the play count matters.
I think it's Goddard there. In one league, I'm projected to win 58% to 42% with New Orleans quarterback currently in my lineup. Who would you drop? Chase Brown, MHJ, Laporta, or Dowdle to pick up a quarterback, or should I not drop any? I wouldn't drop any of those guys. I would try to do a trade, but again, the rattling gun is only thrown for 1 touchdown this whole year. But again, the matchup is incredible. Against
he also hasn't been statistically horrendous either.
Yeah, and he's not proven that he's bad, but he's not like he's not screwing games up. He's not necessarily losing them a bunch of games. When we look at the pass attempts, and this is for anybody thinking about Spencer Rattler, right, is that Chicago's been letting up around 2 to 3 touchdowns to opposing quarterbacks and allowing around 27 pass attempts, around 20 completions. If you look at a guy like Spencer Rattler, and for anybody out there on Spencer Rattler this week, he's attempting around 30-ish, 26 to 30-ish attempts a game. And he's completing around the same average that Chicago's giving up. So when I look at that and I say, this is a spot where he can be really successful, I think that's worth it because they are giving up a lot of fantasy points to quarterbacks. I wouldn't drop any of those guys to pick up a quarterback because you're probably going to find just as statistically the same, if not just maybe modestly better there. It's gross. It really is gross to think about that, but I would not do that. Which running back would you start between Algier, Mason, and Gainwell? I'm probably on Jordan Mason.
Mason that was pretty straightforward.
Mason fumbled early, but I think that considering all matchups, he still has a very good matchup. All right. Better than Gainwell. The matchup is better.
Yeah.
Now,
I mean, a quick hitter, Bob. We got to get it moving.
That's for anybody thinking about Mason. Mason is the play for me there.
So there's a number of deep dives. We're going to jump into the deep dives as we go. Again, everyone, we appreciate
we do answer every question here. So if you don't hear your answer right away, feel free to catch us on the replay.
And also, feel free to use that link to donate to the show. It helps a lot.
Would you start Kittle this week if he plays, or see how he does next week? I have Fannon's back. I'm starting Fannon this week. Miami has been gross against tight ends, and I think he's my favorite tight end matchup of the week in a game where Dylan Gabriel is going to have to pass the ball to tight ends to keep up potentially. I think Fannon is a good play this week. Kittle could surprise you and get a touchdown, but
I don't like people that are first week back from injury unless they're like CD Lamb and you have to play them.
Sit one this week, Brees, Debo, or Judkins.
Brees. I think they're going to completely tee on him and it's going to get shut down.
I would monitor
nowhere fast.
Monitor that heel injury that Debo's been dealing with, because he played like he didn't get his stats were terrible this week, as you saw. So I think that Brees is a better play right now than Debo. But come Saturday, if we get better news on Debo, about the heel, then I'd be on Debo, and I'm definitely on Judkins. I did it again.
So with the news that Travis Hunter is going to be getting more looks, I am definitely leaning Hunter over Bourne, like 100%. So that's how I'm going there.
Yeah, and I'm not on that. I'm on Kendrick Bourne. If Pearsall is not healthy, I think that the volume should be good enough for him to be logistically a good play. But I understand what you're saying, Joe, about Travis Hunter. It's just hard.
Second pick overall. They're going to start forcing the ball at some point.
Yeah, but he was a second pick overall for multiple different reasons, not just for his pass catching. So, like,
I get that, but he also was still the best receiver entering this draft, including
that's totally fair. I just think that his overall upside right now is very limiting, because it's not that he hasn't been getting targets. Like, you go in and you see a game with 8, a game with 6, a game with 5, a game with 7, but the targets that he's been getting, and this is the problem for anybody looking, before we go on, Joe, if we get any more Travis Hunter questions, this is something that I want you to consider. Most of his volume is at or near the line of scrimmage, and it is not downfield. And that is problematic. Whereas Bourne, even if he gets low amount of volume, he's getting it downfield.
Yeah, they're different kinds of receivers. No, I got you.
That's what I want. I want him getting it downfield. Travis Hunter could break it, but he hasn't done that yet. So
he hasn't yet. They do got to start getting downfield. So, Adam, you got offered either Puka or Jamar Chase for Scadaboo and Worthy. To me, I'm taking Jamar. If for no other reason, garbage time is beautiful. Flacco will chuck it, and he's healthy.
Yeah, looking at your team, if I can start CD, JSN, Rashee Rice, and Jamar Chase, and I eat that with Genty, Krosky, Merritt, who's up and down, Rashad, and Bucky, yeah, I would do that in a heartbeat. Scadaboo's playing lights out, and if Wumbo's in the chat, he'll tell you that we're all nervous about Scadaboo's health. Everybody's out there nervous about Scadaboo's health. This is selling Scadaboo high after a 31-point.
I think it's a great thing to sell Scadaboo high right now.
And there's a chance he can go for 15 points right now. But getting Chase right now with Joe Flacco is I think a good call. And Puka's hurt, dealing with the injury. If you're getting Chase instead, play Chase because he's healthy. And you're gonna play him until because you
Chase goes off on Thursday nights. By the way, he just
still have to eat the Rams
bye. Against Baltimore, he scored like 3 touchdowns and nearly.
You would still have to eat the Rams bye as well as the injury. Right now, you would get into Chase if this trade can be done tonight, and I can start Chase tonight, and I could have CD, JSN, Rice, and Chase as my 4 starting receivers. Or
that's a league-winning roster.
Yeah, I'm doing that, dude. I'm doing it for Chase in a heartbeat. KJ, better QB start this week, Bo Nix or Sam Darnold? It would be Bo Nix. Only because
the softer defense.
Yeah, only because the defense is a bit softer. And like I told you about Sam Darnold, is they're letting up a lot of pass attempts, but they're not letting up a lot of scores to quarterbacks over there in Houston. Now, they've played some shitty quarterbacks, don't get me wrong. But the fact of the matter is that the Giants are beatable. And the things that Bo Nix does well matches up to what they don't do well. So Bo Nix is the play there. Running backs are bad in my Yahoo League. Start to Vidal, Bam, Sharps, Hendo, or RJ full PPR. I'm feeling this, KJ. I really feel this for you. Vidal is your first start. I don't think you can bench him after last week. And I think that, like I said, he's going to get volume, not as much as he got last week. Bam is hurt. We'll have to monitor that injury as the week goes on. But right now, Bam is hurt. I haven't heard anything to say that he would be healthy at this point in time. But even if he was healthy, the matchup is a little bit trickier against Green Bay. I don't see that as being positive game script for the Cardinals. I see them probably having to pass it a little bit more. The same thing I said about Sharp or said about K9 is a hard thing to say about Sharps as well. So Hendo's in a good matchup. RJ Harvey could get that volume in the passing game. If you're looking for potential touchdowns, you're probably on Vidal and maybe Zonovan Knight, maybe Bam if he's healthy. If you're looking for a little bit of an upside play, you could probably go Vidal and RJ Harvey, although that is very, very, very gross.
It is very good. It's Vidal and flip a coin. I'd probably go with Hendo just on the potential.
Yeah, and the only reason I say RJ Harvey is because he's getting passing game work. That's
true too. Yeah, you're right. So go with Harvey because there's at least a known there. So Alex, you were offered run CMC for King Henry and DK Metcalf. I would take Metcalf and Henry on that side of the trade.
Yeah, I would keep.
Although I'd have to know who you're cutting, but that's where I will be leaning.
I would keep Henry and DK only because Henry's volume is going to get better as the return of with the return of
and
Lamar
CMC's
Jackson
going to decline.
I don't think CMC is going to decline right now, but if it depends on what the rest of your team looks like, Alex would have to see what the rest of your team looks like. Are the Packers a good start this week? I feel like we are asked. I feel like we always talk about the Packers on the show in terms of like defense, and I'm going to say no. I'm going to say no, they're not a good play this week. I think that there are other better plays this week. It just doesn't feel.
If Kyler Murray starts, yes, they're a great play. If he doesn't, no.
Yeah, I'm not
how
on
I
the
would
Packers
look at it.
I'm not on the Packers this week. I want to look up a stat first before I confirmed my personal.
So yeah, Alex, as we just asked, I would move CMC. That's where I'm at. I've been at move CMC all year. I think that's a decent enough return for it.
Yeah. So Green Bay's only at about 14th overall in the league in terms of time of possession. And so like if Arizona is getting the ball back, you could easily see that being a little bit more back and forthy than it needs to be. Arizona is 9th in terms of time of possession overall on the year. So, when you look at it, Green Bay's a play that's kind of a sucker bet this week, I think.
I don't think so. I think Arizona with Murray is a disaster. Without Murray, they're very competent, and that's obviously how I feel about Murray. So
Amon says I could play Jennings 2 over Spears and Goddard.
I'm still going with Goddard over both of them.
Still going Goddard, I'm on. Jay.
Flex 2, Cade Otton, Tez Henderson. I'm probably going Fannin and Henderson.
I'm on Fannin, and I'm on Fannin and Otton this week. I know I'm not usually on 2 tight ends, but I think the volume is going to be there for both of these players to be super relevant. And the other guys, the volume might not be there.
See, I can't buy that with Evans coming back, but I get where you're at, Bob. If Evans is still limping around, Otton could be a great play. I just don't trust that. Nino, move Diggs for Marvin Harrison Jr. See, here's the thing. Marv's going to look good when he comes back healthy if Murray isn't there. But they're pretty much obligated to put Murray back in. So I would stick with Diggs and probably wouldn't want to get him off your roster anyway, given your other receivers. You can't trade your best guy regardless who it is. You have too much of a fall off to number two.
Joe, I
So
just
if I
want to
were
say
you,
this.
I would move one of your other guys.
I just want to say this, Joe, for everybody watching right now. I find this to be so intriguing. I mean, our show, we're a small show with a good community of people.
We love you, team players.
I find it so unique and interesting that a lot of the questions that are being asked here on the show are like the things that happened that week. There's so many situations that have arisen in the NFL. Like, for example, Joe, this past week we had a question. I believe it might have been from Jesse. I'm not really sure. That it was, do I pick up Luther Burden in case DJ Moore gets hurt? And then you hear the news, ring, ring, ring. DJ Moore gets hurt at the end of that game. Who might see more volume?
Do we have a bunch of psychics or just inside information?
And then we had a question about Algier last week, and we were like, oh, don't drop Algier. He always has a chance. And then Algier goes and scores a touchdown before Bijan Robinson. I'm just saying that I think some of these questions are unique, and not so unique to the community, but overall, just being a little bit more on the pulse, right? But when it comes to Diggs and Marv,
saying he loves you guys.
When it comes to Diggs and Marv, I see their upside on a weekly basis as being about the same. So I see this trade as being like, okay, do I want to buy into the fluctuation in Kyler Murray, or do I want to buy into the fluctuation of pass catching from Drake May? And I'd rather have the pass catcher attached to Drake May.
Yep. And it's that straightforward. But again, Nino, back to your team.
Yes.
You can't trade Diggs. He's too. You don't have a number 2 receiver.
Jesse, I would do that. If I could go out and get Derrick Henry right now for that price, I would do that. It's a lot to pay, but you're playing the quarterback game all the time with either Stafford, Nix, Penix all together, and they're within the same realm. And Henderson and Mason, when Jones comes back, you could see a diminished role for Mason. You might not, but you could. And now you're buying into Henry, and you can start Henry and Hall and Judkins for the foreseeable future. I mean,
yeah, Jesse, the very next thing I would do is start shopping Hall.
And he said, or should I trade Breece Hall and a piece for Henry? You could do that as well. Just understand. And here's the other thing.
Move the quarterback. You have too many quarterbacks on your roster, Jesse, so you have to flush it out anyway.
Here's the other thing to understand about that is that if you trade Breece Hall, his bye week's 9. Ravens are this week. So, you're getting Derrick Henry for the rest of the season. If you're trading Hall now, you would maybe lose out on a good game from Hall this week and, have to suffer that. People might be more inclined to move him for Hall because they don't see the value in Henderson or Mason, but you're giving up 2 pieces that have been frustrating for you to own. And then you just start Hall and Judkins this week, hope for the best.
And because at the end of the day, you're just going to your waiver wire and get someone who's the equivalent of what Henderson's headache is anyway.
So I do believe, Jesse, that I like this first trade better, but I don't see this one as being a problem either, but I like the first trade better. Michael, there was a trade in my league. The guy in last traded away Calvin Ridley and DJ Moore and got Jalen Waddle in return. If it were the opposite direction, I'd claim collusion, but it's not. Just stupidity. Yeah, I mean, I don't see why you would trade Jalen Waddle for Calvin Ridley and DJ Moore. I wouldn't even speculate that as being a good trade for most people. Two hurt players for one that's healthy. Seems kind of
one
odd.
that has upside in the foreseeable future.
Yeah, seems kind of odd. I made fun of the trade in the group chat, and the guy who got fleeced left the group chat. You gotta love that. Need thicker skin. We talked about this last year too.
We
where
did.
League managers and league mates need thicker skin. This is just a game, and people love money, but it's just a game. And if you can't handle the heat, get out of the kitchen. And you're not even.
Well, he did. He loved the group chat.
We will get to all the deep dives. We're clearing through some of the quick hits. We're going to hit a deep dive in about 5 minutes or so. So keep your eyes tuned for that. Also, if you just listed the question and we didn't get to it yet, we do answer all questions here at Local Football Flavor. Feel free to stick tight. We may answer your question along the way through other questions as well.
So, Jesse, I would move London for Henry, but not Rice.
I'd do the other trade. If I could get the other
the
trade,
3-for-1 is a better value in keeping both of them on your roster. Yes, Bob's right. But
if I could do the other trade, I would do that because
it would be London.
I think your team, after you do that trade and after this week, if you're ruling out Derrick Henry, Breece Hall, Judkins, and then your wide receiver situation is Nico, London, and Rice, you're in for a better season ahead. It can't get any worse than we've already been experiencing. But, maybe that's a fallacy. But hoping that it gets better, you have guys that have already had their bye week in London and Nico. You don't have to worry about that anymore. Now you're going ahead. You have to win the rest of the games. So you can't trade a guy that already had a bye week for a guy that's.
And plus, when you're doing a 3-for-1, you're inherently are making your starting roster better.
Yeah. Jamar going for 40. Hopefully my terrible team needs it. Yeah. Jamar can absolutely go for a big score against the Steelers defense. You're welcome, CC.
He does it third, man.
Is Davis a hold with Hall possibly getting traded? I believe we talked about this last week, and I don't see why not. But again, you have to believe that the Jets are going to be in scoring situations for this to be a relevant question. We talked a couple weeks ago.
They're not in relevant scoring situations with Breece Hall. How are they going to do it with a lesser player?
We talked about this a couple weeks ago when we were talking about Justin Fields. And yeah, when you have Justin Fields against a team that's not going to pinch down on the quarterback position as much, then it's going to open the floor more for Fields to have better games up ahead, like Carolina. This might be a better game. But also, they have to be in better scoring situations for Isaiah Davis to be relevant. I think Isaiah Davis is an interesting hold. But again, if Breece Hall leaves and Isaiah Davis takes on 22 carries, that volume is good enough to want to start something like 22 carries, 15 carries, 17 carries, something like that. We saw that with Vidal this week. Is it something to be excited about? No. But is it something that I would drop? Probably not, unless I was taking on players that were better worth my time. Would I drop him? No. Is he a hold? Sure. Other leagues start to AJ Brown, Pittman, T, and Marv. So Pittman was a bust last week. That sucked. That sucked a lot. He was also dealing with a little bit of an injury going into the week.
This was hard.
That's tough. I think that Pittman's volume, but here's why I say Pittman is a good play. Downs just got diagnosed with a possible concussion today. Okay. So now you're reverting back. If you think Daniel Jones is going to have a good game, you're reverting back to Alec Pierce, Adonai Mitchell, Michael Pittman, Tyler Warren. And the matchup for Tyler Warren isn't great. Again, Tyler Warren is a beast. So sometimes that supersedes the matchup. But Pittman could be relevant again this week. And I think Pittman is an interesting play. Marv coming off the concussion, he could be. You have to monitor that health, make sure he's coming back and playing a full complement of snaps. But I think Marv is in a great matchup. He's going to have to be used against this Green Bay secondary in order for Arizona to most likely win the game. So for me, I'm definitely on Marv this week if he's healthy. Then you go in, Joe, and you look at a guy like T. Is T. Higgins a phenomenal play this week? Well, the Steelers don't play the second wide receiver all that well.
Well, they also haven't had their number 2 corner all year. So with them having both of them tonight for the first time ever.
Right. With Joe Flacco, you're going to see probably a good Jamar Chase game potentially.
I think we're seeing 3 touchdowns and 3 picks out of Flacco tonight.
I
think it's that kind of game. I think it's crazy.
And A.J. Brown, for us here on the show, guys, A.J. Brown is one of the most frustrating wide receivers to own. We get it.
Sure is.
We understand it. This matchup is not very good. Across the whole season, Minnesota has only been giving up about 3 receptions to the wide receiver, one lined up against them. And it's only ultimately equating to like 60 yards. And that's kind of what the floor for A.J. Brown has been like all year. And I don't see a ceiling. So I'm on Marv and I'm on Pittman. I like T, but I do worry about the health.
So I'm not playing T on Thursday night. So basically, here's where I'm at. I'm on Pittman and Marv, but pivoting into A.J. Brown if Marv's concussed.
Yeah, it's not bad. Not bad. Jonathan, start 1 PPR, Wan'Dale, Diggs, or JMO. Also pick 1 Mason Taylor or Kyle Pitts.
I'm going Pitts and Diggs.
Pitts and Diggs. It sounds like a barbecue restaurant. Pitts and Diggs.
I'd go with barbecue.
I kind of like that. I kind of want to start a barbecue restaurant. Not really, but Pitts is a good enough play this week. There should be a good amount of volume. San Francisco gives up a decent amount to tight ends. So Pitts is a reasonable play. Again, the only reason you're thinking about Mason Taylor is because Carolina gives up a lot to tight ends, but that's also that they're scoring touchdowns. They're not getting a lot of volume. So I think Pitts has a better touchdown upside in this game. So I'd lean on Pitts. And I think Diggs is a good play this week. Looking at all the matchups, I think Diggs is a good play this week. And again, JMO always has the chance to pop off. We know that. That's just the type of player JMO is. And it's a good matchup. He should get about 3 to 5 looks in this game. And he could do a lot with 3 to 5 looks. They let up a lot of yardage to the wide receiver too. So I would lean JMO because I think there's a little bit more touchdown upside. But if you think Diggs is going to get peppered with targets, you can easily put Diggs. So I'm on JMO and Pitts. Appreciate it, KJ. Click the like, subscribe button. We appreciate all of the people in the chat.
And also click that donate button that's tagged there. We'd love some of that too.
Yeah, Debo is hurt. He's dealing with the heel. And if Terry McLaurin comes back this week, they cannot use Debo to the capacity that they need to win games. We've always seen Luke McCaffrey. We've talked about Luke McCaffrey on the show, and he's had like 2 or 3 touchdowns that have been like 30 to 50 yards. And so Daniels has proven that he will take a shot downfield to Luke. I think Whittington is an interesting play. I'm monitoring the injury. If Debo comes in and he puts in a good practice Friday, and he doesn't go into the weekend with a Q tag, then I think you start Debo. If he's going into the weekend with a Q tag, you pivot to Whittington.
I think you're Whittington regardless, but that's because I think he's going to be hurt. I think he's still hurt.
That's fair. Knicks or Stafford this week, Joe? How you feel about that?
I'm probably going Stafford. I mean, I'm kind of on Stafford till we ain't on Stafford type thing. Guy's probably going out in the Super Bowl and retiring. Whether he wins it or not, we'll see.
That'd be a good look.
I really love the Rams this year.
I worry about Nakua not being there because he did have one of his lowest yardage outputs last week against Baltimore. Again, the weather was kind of shitty and all that. But if you think that Stafford
Baltimore wasn't putting up a fight, and they kind of were just, let's get out of here.
I think this game is going to be more competitive than most people want to think it is. The implied total for, and this is for anybody asking about this, the implied total for the Rams is around 23 points. The implied total for Denver is around 23 points too, but the game could definitely be a
points, baby. Take the points.
I would lean Stafford on that, but I do like Knicks this week. Debo or Vidal? I'm on Vidal. In that situation, I'm on Vidal. Donta, down bad this week due to Puka being out. Feel that. For wide receiver 2, Higgins or Devonta Smith. For flex, Kamara or Monty, PPR.
I'm going Smith and Monty.
Devonta Smith has a trash matchup too.
I know, but I can't. I don't like doing. Now, here's the thing. That being said, there's going to be again. I do think that Flacco's thrown 3 picks and 3 touchdowns tonight. Higgins will get one of them. You can talk me into Higgins tonight in this matchup, but I'm pretty much going Monty in the second one.
Yeah, I'm on Higgins and Monty just because of the game script. Kamara will be used, but I do worry about his total volume with Kendre Miller there. So I'm on Higgins and Monty for your question here, Donta. Which defense would you start, Jesse? Joe, you're the defense whisperer.
If I had the choice of any defense out there, I'm leaning on Seattle's or San Francisco's. I mean, as much as I love Stroud, it's been a low-scoring offense all year, and Seattle has been a very good defense.
Yeah, and for me, Joe, when I look at defenses on the week, these are my defenses that I am looking at in terms of DFS matchups. It's Broncos, it's Chiefs, it's Patriots.
Oh, Chiefs are a good one too. Yeah,
it's Browns, and it's the Panthers. Those are the ones that I'm looking at right now in terms of my DFS lineups here on Thursday. I like the Browns this week. I like the Panthers this week. I think that those are interesting plays. Caden, 0.5 PPR, sit 1. Sutton, BTJ, Debo, Brees, you sit Debo. If he's hurt,
sit Debo because he's hurt, but
you sit Debo if he's hurt.
If all were the same health, it would be Hall.
If all were the same health, I would probably bench Hall out of that grouping of players. But if Debo is going into the weekend with a Q tag, I'm sitting Debo. And I'm not, it sucks, but I'm not really.
It's an injury thing, yeah.
It's an injury thing. Love or Knicks this week? I like both quarterbacks this week to be good enough. But like I said earlier about some of these players, and you probably heard me say this as we were talking about them, I don't think that Love offers enough upside this week in order to be super fantasy relevant in this matchup. I think you could lean on Jacobs as they did last week. Love was a quarterback I loved a lot last week, but it didn't turn out into being anything consequential. So I think I'm on Knicks over Love for this question.
That's fair.
That Algier for Burden question was me last week. Nino, yeah. All right, I feel it. That was wild. I mean, that was a wild question. The amount of...
I still don't think I'm on the Burton bus. And even after seeing him get hurt on Monday Night Football, I still don't think I'm on it. I'm not on Chicago's bus.
The amount of things that had to come together to make that question happen, and then for those events to happen again later that night was impressive. I'm just simply amazed.
That part's very impressive. Nino might have the gift.
Caden, pick one wide receiver off the waiver wire for the rest of the season. Wandale, Golden, Dobbs. It's Dobbs. It's Dobbs.
Yeah, it's Dobbs or Keenan Coleman.
If Pearsall's on your waiver wire too, it's Dobbs and Pearsall without a doubt. Those two guys should not be on your waiver wire right now. If they are on your waiver wire and you are holding on to, I don't know, who would we be holding on to that those guys would be on the waiver wire? I can't even hazard a guess. But if I'm holding on to like a double tight end and like Mark Andrews, for example,
holding on to injury hope is what you're holding on.
If I'm holding on to Mark Andrews, I'm dropping him right now for Romeo Dobbs. If I'm holding on to anybody that I could get Pearsall, a healthy Pearsall for the next couple of weeks, I'm all for it. Michael, fantasy is all about having fun. That's the thing that people don't get. It's turned all into money, winning championships, whatever. We still want to do that. But we also want to have fun.
I do think there's a lot to what Rush is saying. People are just soft.
Yeah, they are. They are. I mean, there's been plenty of times, like I talked to you guys before last week, where I made a trade a couple years back where I lost. I traded away, Devontae Adams and a bunch of people for Derrick Henry, and that was the year Derrick Henry like broke his leg the next week. It sucked. It was terrible, but you move on. You live. He wants London for Henry. Would you rather trade Nico with the injury concern over London?
No.
Jesse, you won't ever hear Joe saying trade away Nico instead of Drake London. So if you want an honest answer from me, I don't really want to trade either of them.
I guess that's the other part of it. I get that you want Henry, but if I were you, I would say if he keeps changing the price on Henry, I do think he is an upgrade over Hall, but you shouldn't be giving away another starting grade player along with it. In fact, Henry for Hall might be close enough just to do it as is. So
like if you could do Hall, and if he wants another wide receiver back, try to
like
get
Kobe Myers is who should be the other receiver.
Because Hall is putting up numbers right now. It all depends on how they view Henry's situation. I understand why he wants London and Nico because they already had their bye. But I don't think that you can afford to give up on Derrick Henry's bye. I don't think you can afford to give up two players that you're going to need this week to win.
Yeah.
Right? So, like, I think you can afford to give up Brees, and the other guys I think you can afford to give up. But I just don't think that you could give up both London and Nico this week and also eating Derrick Henry's bye and then losing the potential production out of these two guys. I just don't see that as being
profitable. Maybe the better answer is just do it Tuesday.
If he still wants to do it on Tuesday, Tuesday afternoon, then I'd do it on Tuesday afternoon. But if he's looking for a position player now, like just lay the hammer down and say, I'm willing to give you that this week. If you want London or Nico, you're going to have to wait until next week. That's kind of how
I would trade London away, but not Collins.
Starting CD, Devontae Adams, and BTJ in my flex. Is it risky starting 2 players playing overseas? Game could be a little weird. We have seen every single game overseas not meet the expectations of most media outlets. But what we need to understand is that these games, they depend a lot on, like, structurally speaking, and we'll get to the deep dives after this. But you look at, structurally speaking, from these games, some teams will start out hot and then lose focus the rest of the game. And then some teams will start out very slow and they will get hot towards the end of the game. So we saw that a little bit with the Minnesota game. And you look and you say, how can this go when we look at these overseas games that are happening this week? I'm not really nervous about the players that you listed here. I don't think that you are losing out on any potential mojo, because it could be that come the fourth quarter, these teams are trading blows back and forth. You know what I'm saying, Joe? But Rush is absolutely right. The Jaguars overseas, they're not that great, historically speaking. So BTJ is a player that scored 20 points plus in DK last week, got volume, got the touchdown. That's what we wanted him to do. You don't have the option to not start him right now, right, KJ? So looking at knowing your running back situation. So you play him, you hope for the best, but if you have to be, drinking a beer at 9:30, there's a worse way. There's a worse way to go.
There's a worse way. So, Bob, these in our internal queue, they're off a little bit, so I'll take care of the deep dives here. And by the way, guys, appreciate everyone doing the deep dive and quick hitter system. It's been great. It's been awesome with you. So for the first one here from CC Inc., Seattle or that Hotland of Funk defense for the rest of the year? When we look at in terms of games remaining and what we project their points to be against, these two teams are both on the plus side, and they both are incredibly tight together. So there are two very valid teams to look at it when considering quality of offenses remaining upon their schedule. So when I look at that and I see that we're projecting essentially the same amount of points against, I go to the one that I believe is more likely to create the turnovers. And for me, that's Seattle. So I am going to go with, for the extent of the remaining schedule and the fact overall, I think they are a better defense and they're definitely better at creating turnovers, I'm going to go with the Seahawks. Not to mention, I do think that flight gets to a lot of people.
So there's a lot of kind of similarities to the back end of their schedule. They're both playing, some AFC South opponents. They're playing some. The thing about the Falcons have the AFC East on their schedule right now, and they are playing the 3 teams from the AFC East in the upcoming, 8 weeks that are upon us. They're not meeting so many divisional opponents late that have like tremendous offenses. So like when we go to November, like thinking about the playoffs, like assuming you make it to the playoffs week 15, 16, 17, right, Joe?
Mm-hmm.
We're looking at, I believe December 11th is week 15, correct?
Sounds right.
So that's Buccaneers, Cardinals, Rams. Buccaneers, Cardinals, Rams. And the Buccaneers is always going to be a headache for Atlanta. Then you go to the end of the season here for Seattle, and you have Colts, Rams, Panthers. Okay. So when all things being the same, I think that the Colts are going to be a harder matchup for the Seahawks, but that's in Seattle. It could be very rainy. Like two of their last 3 games that are in our fantasy playoffs are at home, whereas the Falcons are on the road. And home defenses tend to play a little bit more. They feed off the crowd a little bit more. Okay. Mm-hmm. So like, I think that when I look at this team and I look at all things being kind of the same in terms of offenses on the schedule and, an even amount of offenses that can score and not score on the schedule. Like I'm looking at the Seahawks, right? The Seahawks have on their schedule coming up, Texans, Commanders can score, Cardinals, Rams, Titans can't score. Vikings might have a hard time. Then they also have the Falcons, Colts, Rams, Panthers. There's not a lot of teams necessarily on that schedule for the Seahawks that can score. Then you go over to Atlanta and you say Patriots can score, Dolphins can, Colts can. The Saints are having a hard time. Panthers can have a hard time. Rams can score. Buccaneers can score. So if you take it from that perspective and you look across the whole season and you say, okay, Seattle's a good play. They've kept games low scoring so far on the totality of the year. And there's only been one game where there was a big score. And the Falcons have been kind of doing the same thing too, but they've let up more points this year than Seattle. And they can create a lot of turnovers. Seattle can do that. And the weather in Seattle is going to get gross.
Sure is. I think that's part of help Seattle
very soon. And I think it does help Seattle. So I would lean on Seattle rest of the season. Got an offer for Genti and Igbuka for my Judkins and Pickens.
Can't do that.
Smash accept, but I need a second opinion. Jesse, I'll give my opinion first and then Joe.
I want Judkins and Pickens. And Genti is a guy we talked about the entire offseason that has a shelf life. And that shelf life is rapidly about to spoil. Pickens, on the other hand, might be the most valuable player in this trade. Even after CD comes back, his life gets easier because now he's not going against the number one, and he's established pure trust with Dak. The next best player in this trade, given Mbuka's injury, is probably Judkins. So, because Judkins, Cleveland can't throw the ball. They're not even trying to. They're not good at it. And when they get forced to, they lose by even more. So Judkins has to be the basis of this offense if Stefanski doesn't get fired. Everyone knows it. So when I look at this, you cannot trade away the two best players in a trade. You never can do that under any circumstances, regardless how shiny Mbuka is. Because Mbuka was shiny with Godwin and Evans out.
I want to bring it to you this way, Joe, is that all year, the stats have said that the Cleveland Browns are one of the best rush defenses in the league. Okay. Yep. No matter what stat sheet you look at, Cleveland is number one. They're letting up a lot on a total game-by-game basis. It's not that teams can't, or it's not that teams won't run the ball against them. They have tried to run the ball against them.
They're doing garbage time, kill the clock is what they're doing.
And they have failed judiciously in doing that.
And most teams do in that circumstance.
Now, when you look at total points, like on the year, Cleveland has let up the least amount of points to fantasy running backs on the whole season. The reason I bring this up is that the best qualities of the teams remaining, minus two of them, are their running backs. Dolphin. This is the Browns' schedule. I'm just going to read it to you. This is a deep dive. Let's read it. Dolphins, Patriots, Jets, Ravens, Raiders, Niners, Titans, Bears, Bills, Steelers, Bengals. If you look at that listing, that group of teams, there isn't one team outside of maybe Drake May with the Patriots and maybe Josh Allen there and maybe Lamar when he comes back, where they would want to push the ball continuously down the field. Every single one of those teams, minus the Patriots, and the Titans, have a solid running game that Cleveland can stop. So Cleveland is not going to be out of many of those games if that's run
point. Yeah.
defense is there. Now, the thing is about Judkins is we thought the last 2 weeks, right, that Judkins was a bell cow. Well, when they were down against the Pittsburgh Steelers this week, Jerome Ford came into the game and got 6 receptions, right? So you see that there's a potentiality.
Yeah, they're doing a clear running back and catching back.
There's potentiality that might eat into his work. But in order for Cleveland to win games moving forward, they are going to have to continue or try their best to lead the game in time of possession. And how are they going to do that Well, they're going to do that by rushing the ball. When you look at them in terms of time of possession, they're 16th overall in the league. Okay. And Judkins is a big part of them keeping the ball for as long as they have and getting and pushing the ball downfield. So if I'm looking at this trade from just that perspective, Judkins is sitting there as having while the matchups aren't always great, Titans is excellent, Bears is great. When I look at that and I say, and this week is great too, when I say that this could fail, yeah, it could fail tremendously. But from the Judkins perspective, Judkins is in enough good matchups coming up and is healthy that you don't have to worry about that. Now, Dallas, on the other hand, we look at Dallas and we say, well, these matchups for Dallas are going to be potentially very highly competitive. Commanders this week, Broncos, Cardinals, Raiders, Eagles, Chiefs, Lions, Vikings, Chargers, Commanders, and then the end of the season with the Giants doesn't matter. But you look at it and you say, in a highly competitive matchup for a defense that cannot stop anything, you are going to continue to have to move the ball downfield, and you're going to have to be really good at it. And Javonte will play a role. Jadon Blue will probably play a role. But when I look at it and say, even though the matchups aren't going to be great for George Pickens all the time as the wide receiver 2, potentially going into some of these matchups, they're going to be good enough that I want to take that right now. And you guys know I love Emeka Egbuka, and I won't say anything bad about him. But I'm looking at it and saying, he is not healthy right now. He is dealing with an injury right now. And Genti isn't good enough as an upgrade over Judkins right now for this trade to make any smash except me. This is from a name basis.
Smash to get Pickens, not to give Pickens.
From a name basis, like you might be fooled into thinking that Genti is the piece to own in this. But when you look at it from a statistical basis and a matchup basis, and you can even do the same thing that I just did, and you can look at the Raiders schedule and say like, oh,
well, the Raiders schedule falls off a cliff in 3 weeks.
But listen, right? Chiefs, Jags, Broncos, he could eat against. Cowboys, great matchup. So Genti has 3 good matchups in the next 4 weeks.
And then you move him.
Then he has a good enough matchup against the Chargers as well. So like the thing is, though, is you're going to have to say that the Raiders are going to continue to be highly competitive in these matchups as well. So for me, this piece is like, yeah, Genti is a good piece to get in there because he's going to have some good games in the next 3-4 weeks. But Judkins and Pickens right now, especially considering that Egbuka is not healthy,
you should be getting much more for Judkins and Pickens.
You should be able to get a healthy player right now.
That's a reasonable trade to get J-Jeff. Judkins and Pickens for J-Jeff.
Yeah. And just going into here before we continue with the deep dives,
Marlon. Let's go through. Let's go through because I got them all queued up here.
Yeah, Rush. Yeah, we appreciate it.
I like and subscribe, baby. We love that.
At 9:30. Joe, I had a really great beer. I got to say this to everybody. It's from Blockhouse Brewing. Okay. Blockhouse Brewing makes a tremendously good pumpkin beer. It's like a pumpkin pie beer. And I know people don't like the holiday pumpkin beer, but they make a blueberry wheat. Ooh. And if you like blueberries, you like cherry wheat from Sam Adams. If you like blueberries, smash. It is.
Might have to.
It is delicious.
So should we trade Garrett Wilson and Dak for Javonte and Tila? Yeah, give me Javonte Williams on that side of that trade. That's what I want. I want Javonte Williams. I get that Dak is having some upside. Jacksonville surprisingly putting up points. Give me Javonte Williams. They finally might have found a coach who can use Lawrence.
Mark, I like Dak a lot, but with the injury to Garrett Wilson, the lack of stretching the ball downfield from Fields, Garrett Wilson, when he comes back healthy, if they have Tyrod Taylor in, I think that Garrett Wilson's probably is a great player in this trade. But right now, you're 2-4. Garrett Wilson on your bench hurt isn't helping you much right now. You need to get 2 or 3 wins in that time period, and not having Garrett Wilson is going to hurt you. Losing out on Dak is not great, but you go into Javonte and T-Law. Now, again, Javonte could have pedestrian games here and there. We saw one this past week. But Javonte and T-Law is good enough return that I think that I would do it. If Garrett Wilson was healthy, I wouldn't do it. But again, he's not. So I would consider that. I'd see if I could get a little bit different though, because I'm not a huge T-Law guy, Mark, to be honest
So
with you.
if you are getting rid of Genty and Devontae Adams and getting Rishi Rice and Omarion Hampton, this is an interesting conversation, Marlon. I need to know what your record is. So I see your team here is Allen, Jacobs, Genty,
5-1.
Henry.
He's 5-1.
Oh, you're 5-1. Okay, sorry, I missed that. So 5-1 allows us to play a little bit more of the speculation game. Right now, I don't think I want to get in to Rice for the playoff push. I'd much rather have the Rams playoff schedule than Kansas City's playoff schedule. So I'm going to lean towards the Rams side of this trade and keeping Adams. Now, that being said, everything we just went through about Genty is still true. I'm going to start eyeballing people who want Genty as he puts up a couple of decent numbers. But as soon as something gives me a decent trade, not world beating, but decent trade, I'm pulling the trigger on Genty by himself. So that's how I would treat that, Marlon.
So,
but Devontae Adams is someone I want more in the playoffs than Rishi overall.
Looking at your team in totality here, and you have Allen, your starters are Josh Jacobs, Genty, and Derrick Henry. I think that Derrick Henry is that piece for you right now, Marlon, that is going to pay off dividends past week 7 here. I would go,
if he falls off.
What I would go and do, Marlon, is that I would hold right now. I don't think you need to buy Omarion right now, and you're paying the highest price that you can pay for Rashi right now. And the reason I say this is we talked last week, we talked the week before, we talked every week prior to that, is that the price of Rashi Rice has gone up to what his expected value would be. If Rashi Rice goes out and lays a stinker this week, his price will go down.
It's not gonna.
It could be. If he does do well, his price isn't going to change. Okay,
that's pretty much at its max.
That's the thing about
Rice. I ate him for 6 weeks losing. I'm not giving him away for nothing now.
Rice has a chance to go up into the stratosphere, like we've said earlier on in the offseason, back in February, January, that if Rice can smash and be the overall wide receiver 1 on a given year on a Patrick Mahomes-led offense. This is a fact. Okay.
And he's going to this week. I firmly believe Rice is going off the chain this week.
Getting him would be great. But the necessity of Omarion Hampton is not there.
That's the answer.
For me, because what we're seeing now from all the news from doctors, the guy, Nathan, the guy that I follow on TikTok as well, every doctor's saying that this injury is more than what the agreed upon time period of being out would be. Because you got to remember, if they say 4 weeks, and this is kind of the Bucky Irving kind of thing that's happening too, is if you say 4 weeks, it's 4 weeks plus more, potentially, because you have to get back into football, ramming into people condition, right? Jay, you're 5-1, but it's not a 5-1 that you need to go out there and sacrifice your players right now.
Yeah, Marlon, I think you're better off not doing that one, is the end of the day, is what Bob and I are trying to get at here.
I want Rashi Rice. I do want Rashi Rice, and I would try to make a trade for Rashi Rice. But I would not want to trade into Omarion Hampton right now because I don't feel that Omarion Hampton is the guy that you want that takes your team to the next level come playoff time.
All right, guys, we got 3 more quick hitters to come through. We're going to get back in these deep dives.
Arturo, 1 QB, half PPR. They offered me Gibbs for my Josh Allen. I should accept it, right? I would. If I'm getting a positional player, the level of Jahmyr Gibbs for a quarterback, although it is Josh Allen, I am doing that depending upon what quarterbacks are on my team and what quarterbacks are on the waiver wire. For example, if the best quarterback on the waiver wire is T-Law, I might not do it. But if the best quarterback on the waiver wire is, say, Brock Purdy, I might.
I want Gibbs regardless. You're in a 1 quarterback league.
I love Gibbs.
Point. There's going to be enough of them sitting around. You might even have a decent one on your bench.
Give me the positional player. Give me the positional player over the quarterback because Gibbs has – if you look at overall, and I know this is quick, but if you look at overall in the entire league, right, players that could outscore Josh Allen, there's 5 of them, maybe 6 of them, and one of them is Jahmyr Gibbs.
Yep.
So do that in a heartbeat. Should I
So
sell high on
Scorpio,
Scadaboo
I'm
and Dowdle?
absolutely trading Rico
Yeah.
Dowdle at his peak, and I am listening very attentively about Scadaboo. But I am ready to move Dowdle for basically anything right now. And anything that's
As we
fair
said,
compensation.
Scorpio, I don't know if you joined us on Monday or not, but I did say that Dowdle was a guy that I would want to move, and that was before the Chuba news as well. And with the Chuba news, I still want to move him because a split, he was getting volume, like 30, 28. He's not going to get that with Chuba there. And it could be 60, 40, 70, 30, all that stuff, but it's not going to get you there. So the time to sell Dowdle, I think, has passed. Unfortunately, I don't think you're going to get the max value for Dowdle. But Dowdle is definitely going to be a guy that you can sell because Chuba might not come back healthy and he might be out again. And then you can put in
that's
Dowdle
the
again.
speculative reason to get more for him. I just think Scadaboo is at his peak and go get him for it.
Scadaboo is at his peak. It would be a rare occurrence that a New York Giants running back in the next couple of weeks is going to score 3+ touchdowns.
Yeah, it's not going to happen. So Jesse, since we're talking Rico Dowdle, I'm so on Vidal over him this week.
I am on Vidal this week. Again, looking at the matchups overall, right, Joe? And just looking at
it's mostly situation. Vidal's not getting competition at all.
But again, looking at the total number of touches, right, is that typically speaking, when you look at what the Colts give up to running backs, it's around 18 total touches to all running backs involved. The top running back typically gets about 15 total touches. We saw what Vidal did with 18 plus. Can he do more with that? Also, there's good amount of touchdown upside with Vidal this week. It could easily lean Haskins, and that would suck. When you go to Rico, on the other hand, Rico's in a situation where the Jets give up a lot of rushing attempts to running backs. It just depends. And it's a total of about 24 rush attempts total. So if you see Dowdle dominating those rush attempts, that's more than the Chargers could get. You could easily lean into Dowdle because he's been so good. But again, if Chuba comes back in and he's super healthy, that would be a problem for me.
All right, JC. So off to you. Jameson Williams, Wandale, or Pacheco, Bob?
So again, this is a tricky, because it's half PPR, the Wandale's, volume probably doesn't mean a whole lot if he's not able to score that touchdown. And Isaiah Pacheco, while he's been getting a little bit more here and there, showing a little bit of bright light, there's nothing there for me to want to play him. There's limited to 0 touchdown upside in the Kansas City, from Isaiah Pacheco because Kareem Hunt gets the ball down in the red zone. So I'm on JMO. I told you why. He's going to get at least 3 to 5 targets, and he can do a lot with 3 to 5 targets. So I'm on JMO on that one.
We got 3 more deep dives to flush out here. And KJ, we're going to jump up to yours. Should I drop Jennings for Trey Tucker or Burton? I'm hard not doing that. I want to keep Jennings. His potential over both of them is significant. Jennings as a starter when healthy is massive. Now, the question is, do you ever really get healthy after breaking a bunch of ribs? And the answer is probably no. But the potential of probability of targets coming his way might be greater than those other two combined. And you would never make it up on one or the other. So I'm not starting Tucker or Burton either. Like, that's never happening. But I would start Jennings 2 weeks from now. So for me, I would not drop Jennings for those two.
Yeah, I mean, KJ, the only reason that you could see yourself dropping Juwan Jennings for a guy like Trey Tucker is the fact that it's looking more and more and more likely that Jacoby Myers is traded. Whether Jacoby Myers is traded to, New England doesn't really matter for a question like this. But when you look at Trey Tucker, Trey Tucker has the chops to potentially be a good enough wide receiver 1 on the Raiders this season. It can happen. He gets enough volume to make that happen. When Brock Bowers comes back, it could be very relevant. What I would do to kind of think about that situation is I would look at the Raiders schedule just like we did. And I'd sit down and I'd see, okay, passing defenses. Well, if ends up the wide receiver 1 against December 7th against the Broncos, that's going to suck. He faces the Eagles the next week. That's a good enough matchup. Texans, good enough matchup. Giants, good enough matchup. So when we look at playoff runs in terms of wide receivers with good enough playoff runs, if their quarterbacks are good enough, yeah, Trey Tucker is a reasonable player to buy into right now at a low value. If he's on the waiver wire, pick him up. But when you look at the Niners, on the other hand here, when you look at the Niners and you look at their schedule, you can make an argument that Jennings is never going to be fully healthy this year. Going back, looking at the playoff schedule again.
And I agree with that, Bob. But the question is, does hurt Jennings ever surpass their value?
I can't. So here's the reason why I'm bringing all this up, Joe, is that once everybody is, and that's assuming that everybody becomes healthy again in San Francisco, I cannot see a reason why they would want to push Juwan Jennings' injury further if they have a guy like Kendrick Bourne who is proving that he can do exactly what Jennings can do as well, if not the same.
So you're basically saying they're going to shut Jennings down, because that's the only way I would justify this trade.
I mean, when you look at Jennings, he was just bitching and moaning in the offseason. Okay. Mm-hmm. They signed him to a 2-year contract, $15.4 million. Okay. They added incentives to his contract of $3 million.
Well, he ain't gonna get
playing incentives, which he's not going to get. So he's already dealing with 5 broken ribs. He dealt with a quad or a heel or an ankle already this year. And I look at that and I say, yeah, I could be drastically wrong about this and say that Jennings is going to come back and have good enough stats the rest of the season. And that could happen. But when I see a guy, and we saw Debo last year, Debo with pneumonia, having all of those problems, moving to, I can't foresee that having 5 broken ribs. I don't know what capacity that he broke those ribs to, but 5 broken ribs is not going to be nice when you're looking and chugging down the field and breathing really hard and trying to be the best NFL wide receiver that you can be. Eventually you are going to heal up, but ankle, ribs, shoulder, he has 3 designations. Okay. And he's already limited in practice. Before that
sounds like he's ready in July.
His best game this year was 89 yards.
So your argument is that he's going to be shut down and nothing to it. My argument to it is the other side. I don't think I want either of these 2 guys.
Well, if I want any of them, like I said, there are 2 pathways to follow with this, right? Is Luther Burden is a play if you are on the bus that DJ Moore could get traded or that DJ Moore has an injury that he could deal with. Luther Burden is definitely an acceptable playmaker to add to your team, because this is a Bears offense that I understand how you feel about the Bears in the wintertime, but this is a Bears offense that
same way I feel about the springtime,
that with Ben Johnson needs playmakers. Luther Burden is a playmaker. They're going to find a way to get him the ball. They've always done that with their playmakers on a Ben Johnson team. Trey Tucker, the argument for Trey Tucker here is that Trey Tucker will assume the mantle of wide receiver 1. Once Brock Bowers comes back, Brock Bowers is the de facto number 1. Then you roll Trey Tucker in there as well with Jack Beck, who they just got this year. Now you have an offense that is pretty much, the targets are pretty much standard of where you.
I don't think Tucker becomes the 1 over Beck. I'm not even sure.
Regardless of if he is or is not the number 1, this is an offense that is devoid of like a number 1 option that is
also
going
devoid of scoring points. Which is why I go back to the Niners you're looking at 3 people who, for all various reasons, have limited pathways to meaningful touches. And then when that's the case, give me the one who's on the best pie. Which is the Niners by far.
And that's fair. I totally understand it. But again, for the sake of the deep dive, right, is to have multiple arguments for these players. And if you are arguing that Jennings is in a better situation, you are going to have to see Jennings come out with more than 5 targets a game. And in
No,
a passing,
because I don't think collectively the other two are getting the 5 targets a game.
oh, but Trey
Tucker,
Tucker,
Burton especially,
Trey
Jalen.
Tucker is Joe. That's the thing that you're not understanding about this, is that Trey Tucker already is getting 5 targets a game.
Well, then,
Okay.
then maybe that's your answer then. But I don't believe the Raiders are going to ever put up enough points to make it worth it.
Joe, here's what I'm saying.
Luther Burton is their JMO. So
I'm going to read you, and I don't want to talk about Trey Tucker more than we've already have, but I want to read you his targets over the course of the year: 3, 8, 9, 2, 6, 5. He's legitimately being targeted in this offense with Geno Smith.
Yeah.
So
I still want to do it because the offense is too sporadic. But if you're making a case now for Trey Tucker that I'm listening.
I don't like that I did that, but it needed to be done because your argument is absolutely realistic, right? He could come back and Jennings could be back to de facto number 1.
Well, I want to put on this second point here. He already has Myers rostered, and until he trades him, I can't have 2 Raiders receivers.
I get it.
So to finish out your deep dive, sorry, KG, I was sitting on that as like my nuke, but that's why I'm going with that. That's why I'm going there.
I get it, but Myers might be not too long for this team. All right,
but you can't guarantee that. The Raiders look good at imploding and ruining things.
All right, Josh, Drake May, BTJ, T-Mac, Lamb, Judkins, JCM, McBride, Dowdle, Benches, Tyler, Warren, Henderson, Marks, Golden, Ridley, Fannin, IR, Izigbuka. Trade packages for Henry or Puka. If I'm getting in, I got you, AS. We'll answer that question in a bit. Sit tight. So if I'm looking at this team and I'm trying to put together a trade for Derrick Henry right now, because that's probably the player that I'd be targeting for you, knowing that your second running back there is JCM, I would be packaging, like we said, I believe we said on Monday, I would be packaging one of those wide receivers in BTJ and T-Mac and one of your tight ends, McBride or Warren, and I'd see if that could get it done. I think it's fair enough that you're giving a wide receiver 1/2 with upside with one of the de facto top 3 tight ends in the league.
And McBride's the one I would move. We talked about this on Monday. McBride's the one I want to get rid of because they're going to play Murray again and his production will fall, especially touchdown production.
Just as an example right now, guys, of the value that McBride has, there was a guy in my league. I went out and I was like, hey, I'm interested in McBride. I like his floor on a weekly basis. He has good upside. What would it take to get him on my team? And he goes, I need Breece Hall and Chase Brown. That's how much people value McBride right now.
Yeah, I don't get it.
So like two, while Chase Brown has been sucking it up, he's still getting decent enough volume. So for me, when I look at this, what I'd be looking at is I'd trade one of those 2 wide receivers, BTJ or T-Mac, plus one of the tight ends and see if you can get Henry. I think McBride plus T-Mac could get you there, or BTJ and Warren would get you there. If you want Puka, I think it's going to take more than that to get to Puka. You'd probably have to trade 3 pieces to get to Puka, and those 3 pieces you probably wouldn't want to trade. You'd probably have to trade something like BTJ, Judkins, and
But let me ask you this: you think you can get to Henry with McBride and Bill?
You could try it. If that's what you want to do. But I like Bill as a flex. I like Bill as a flex moving forward. So
that's
you could try it that way. If you'd rather give up the wide receiver, do that. If you don't want to give up the wide receiver, then pair the running back up. So Joe gave you another option there of Ja'Cory Krosky plus McBride to try to ask for Henry. It might not get you there. You might have to throw in like Golden or something like that in order to get to Henry, because Golden has more upside than Ridley right now.
That's true.
And looking at your team, you have McBride, Warren, and Fannin. You got to move one of the tight ends to get one of those.
You
players.
Absolutely do. And McBride's the one to move. He's got the name.
Honestly, if you want both Henry and Puka, while this is a crazy thing, and I'm not saying do this, shop around both McBride and Warren, because if Njoku's knee is bothering him, Harold Fannin could be a top 6 tight end the rest.
Well, if that's the case, then just do Fannin and T-Mac and Golden for Mbuka. Or for Puka.
I don't think that's going to do it, but you could try.
It's not, but it starts the conversation.
You could try.
But again, we went through all that stuff with you on that last one, Joshua, on Monday.
And guys, if you have any questions, feel free to put them in the chat. We do answer all questions here. We are catching up on a lot of questions. If you don't hear your answer right away, feel free to join us on replay. Back to that Diggs for Marv trade. That way I can keep a piece of that Pats offense. Would it be tempting if he added in Booty or stay put like you guys thought? Going back up to that trade, Joe, it was
Diggs for Marv. That was the trade he was offering.
So if you're saying Diggs for Marv and Booty, I'd do that. Sure.
Yeah, if you're getting Booty back too, because your biggest problem, Nino, is you don't have a receiver number 2. Your receiver number 2 was Myers.
Well,
so I'm not saying Booty's a great number 2, but at least he's an upgrade over Myers.
But here's what we said.
I still don't think I would do it, but I would get it if you do.
Here's what we said to you a couple weeks ago, though, Nino, is that Diggs is one of those players that we do like a lot, was getting that volume, and then that volume trended off in the last game, and Booty got the touchdowns, but he didn't get the volume. That volume is still going to Diggs. So if you like where Marvin Harrison Jr.'s volume will be, then by all means, trade him in for Marvin Harrison plus Booty. But a straight up deal across the board, Diggs for Marvin Harrison, I'm not sure I like that at all. But I do think that with Jacoby Brissett, if Jacoby Brissett maintains the quarterback role there, that Marv is in a very good spot because Kyler Murray can't throw the ball downfield and Jacoby Brissett can.
Yeah.
And he looked pretty decent doing it, by the way.
That's why they're a better team without Murray.
T. Higgins or Kendrick Bourne this week, Matthew, and Rogers or Caleb this week? Thank you. So, Matthew, we gave you a lot of reasons throughout the show why Higgins would be a good play. I gave you many reasons why Bourne could potentially be a good play. There's a lot of moving parts to the San Francisco 49ers health-wise, so it's hard to say on Thursday night that Bourne is the definitive play over T. Higgins. And because this is a Thursday night decision, I think I lean into T. Higgins, although I do really like and I do project Kendrick Bourne to do really well if the other pieces aren't playing. As it goes to the quarterback situation here, again, this game could be dominated by Jaylen Warren. It could be dominated by Kenneth Gainwell. Rodgers is going to have a good game. I think he gets 2 touchdowns. I also think the
basically comes out of this. How big's your penalty for interceptions? Because if it's real, I'm going Rodgers.
I like Caleb Williams to get 2 touchdowns this week too, and he showed that he can get a rushing touchdown. I have Caleb Williams projecting better than Rodgers, so I lean Caleb, but I could easily see why you would want to play Aaron Rodgers as well. Jesse, I don't know if you guys answered this yet, but would you trade London and Hall for Puka and Henry? We did not answer that yet. Would I trade London and Hall for Puka or Henry? Yeah.
If I'm getting Puka and Henry, I would do it.
Yeah, if I could get something.
The problem with your team, Jesse, we've gone over this a couple times. You're 1-5. You can't be. You cannot play the game of I'm throwing another week away, which is what you'd be doing with that trade. Now, Jesse, if you can do that trade on Tuesday, I'm 100% doing it. But I'm not doing that trade before this week.
Because this is the thing, Jesse. The value of London and Hall won't go down unless something catastrophic happens, and that you can't project.
Yep.
Right? But if they end up having 2 bad games, and let's say they're very pedestrian, like 10-10, their value doesn't drop tremendously. Okay? But you need those numbers this week. All 1-5 teams right now, there's a lot to say about trading for injured players and all this stuff, but Henry,
you have wins to do it.
Henry and Puka's value aren't changing, right? Now, the only thing that might change about the value is that, I wanted you to eat the Derrick Henry buy, so now he's going to be priced a little bit higher, and I might have to offer.
But it's still going to be within the range of London and Hall.
But I am keeping London and Hall because they're projecting.
You need them for this
week, and I'm keeping them, and I'm waiting till Tuesday to take care of a trade like that because the value of the other 2 players will not change.
All right, Jaylen Warren or ETN tonight, Bob?
I like Jaylen Warren for the same reason I told you I like Kenny Gainwell. I like Warren.
You can run all through Cincinnati.
ETN's a problem because ETN's volume has been pretty good, but he hasn't been generating enough offense. So I can't lean into ETN when the matchup is much better for Jaylen Warren. Noah, what do you think of trading Cam, Mark Andrews for JSN? I think if Cam, is that Cam Ward? Noah, just to clarify, is that Cam Ward?
I'm assuming it is.
I'm doing
that in a second.
This would get laughed at.
Yeah.
If you, we talked with Michael. We talked with Michael about trades that, league mates would be. Oh, Scadaboo. Okay.
Oh,
if it's Cam Scadaboo, I think that's fair.
I had no idea Scadaboo had a first name. I just thought he was only Scadaboo. Like
just going by Scat Pack, man. Yeah, I'd do that.
I still don't think you get that trade through Scadaboo and Andrews for JSN, but I'd try it.
I'd do it. I'd
take the JSN side, obviously.
I want JSN on my team after what he's been generating.
Today.
Dylan, Thursday question, full PPR. Are we high enough on T tonight to start over Kraft in the flex? Kraft has a great matchup and not great volume last week.
Yeah, Dylan, my answer is yes, because I don't like putting tight ends on my flex.
I feel that, but Joe, tight end week where multiple tight ends can be relevant. We might have already seen it, but the numbers don't lie.
You don't see it until George Kittle announces it. He's very adamant about it.
Tucker Kraft is in a incredible matchup from a tight end perspective. Now, here's the thing about Tucker Kraft, right, is against Arizona. Arizona's giving up about 5 targets to tight ends. They're giving up a modest amount. They do give up a lot of yards and numbers of that. But the best thing about Tucker Kraft is that it is very easy to lean into Tucker Kraft because Tucker Kraft gets touchdowns, okay? Last week, he got a touchdown on very low volume. The week before, no touchdown, but still relevant play. Week before, no touchdown. Week before that, touchdown. Every week that he has got a touchdown, right, outside of week 1 where he wasn't targeted, where he only had 16 yards, he's had a very good fantasy scoring week. T. Higgins, I think, is a nice play, but I wouldn't start him over Tucker Kraft. I know it's weird.
Fair enough.
I wouldn't do it. What's up, Nick? Start 3 this week. DK, Nico, Pickens, and Sutton. Well, first off, it's Pickens. Regardless of if he's the wide receiver.
You're playing Nico and Pickens. This comes down to now DK or Sutton, Bob. Who are you picking?
Who am I picking out of Nico or out of Sutton? You're definitely starting Nico. I think
I'm starting DK because everyone is torching the Bengals.
I think when I look at it, you can see that the Giants are not that great against wide receivers, but they're also not giving up a lot of points to the wide receiver one. They're giving up a lot of volume. I'm on DK this week because Cincinnati can't really stop anything. Even though they're at home on a short week Thursday night, I think it's DK, Nico, and Pickens, no doubt. I think, Nick, every week we talk about defense here, and it seems like the defense that we like to pick always falls to the wayside, but the Patriots are a good play this week.
Yeah, New England's a great play this week.
They're projecting really, really well this week. Are we sitting Chase Brown no matter what the guy's a bum tonight, right? My guys I'm starting over him are Swift, Golden, and Jordan Mason. Dylan, in your case, I'm absolutely starting Swift, Golden, and Jordan Mason over Chase Brown. If I had no other choice, then I would start Chase Brown. I don't think it's a great play, but again, Thursday night games, you could lean a little bit on the running backs and the tight ends. When I look at this, and that's why people might say, oh, John's a good play this week. Noah Fant's a good play because they could lean on the tight ends, but there's more than one tight end there to lean on. So you don't know where that projected volume is going to go. I'm absolutely on Swift, Golden, and Jordan Mason. Swift and Jordan Mason have great matchups. Golden has a great matchup too. The volume is a concern for him.
Dylan loves in the house. Welcome. So sit one, Chase Brown, Kenneth Walker, Mason. I'm probably sitting Chase Brown. He's a really bad running back, despite the fact he's got a gajillion yardage. If you don't do anything with it, it doesn't matter. You can get the ball 5 million times. He's not doing anything with it.
Bones, for this question, Joe's absolutely right. When we look at Mason is a play. Mason is the play out of that grouping of players in terms of the matchup, right? Then you go down the list and you go to, okay, where do we see Chase? Where do we see Chase Brown at? Chase Brown is bottom of the barrel, right? He's going to get volume. He might get a weird touchdown, but it's not going to be nice in the yardage department. So you lean Kenneth Walker, but Kenneth Walker is going to be in that split. And if that's not something you want, lean in the Chase Brown, but I think I'm leaning Ken Walker and Mason there.
So Nick, to your weather question, it's low to mid 60s. And then let's talk about your actual team here. You got Mayfield, Lawrence, Genty, Pollard, Warren, Nico, DK, Sutton, Pickens, hence your trade question.
They did get to
Parasol, Kraft, Bowers, and we're looking to make a trade. You got 2 tight ends. I'm probably looking to move Bowers as a starting point in this, Bob. And his running back is where I want to upgrade. So I'm probably looking at Bowers and Pollard. I know they're not in the best sell right now positions.
No, you can't do that.
I need to upgrade my running back.
So you're welcome, Bones. So the problem with Pollard and Bowers is that right now Pollard has minimal to zero value unless you're struggling and need a startable running back right now. So for example, if I need a startable running back right now and I am 1 or 2, I have 1 win or 2 wins. Yeah, I'll take on Pollard. Although the news about Spears is encouraging for Spears.
But what I'm saying is I don't think you're going after JT or someone like this. I think you're going after basically a 1-for-1 with Bowers, and Pollard's putting it over the top is what I'm trying to argue for.
So he's 5-1. All right. If I'm looking for
maybe Omarian's, well, probably not. It's probably too hurt, but
right. If I am looking for a running back, what running back would I be looking at right now? I think it's reasonable that when I look at like accumulating wins in similar situations, right, is that I am, for your team specifically, interested in DeAndre Swift. Now, it's a gross interest, and you won't have to probably trade a lot to get there, but his matchups over the next coming weeks are going to be pretty good. I'm going to read you this because it's a deep dive here. I'm going to read you the schedule on, and you can decide what you think about this, right? Saints, Ravens, Bengals, Giants, Vikings, Steelers, Eagles, Packers, Browns. Coming playoff time, the schedule is not that good. But I think that a guy like Swift is not going to cost you a lot right now. He had a great game this past week, so his price did go up from the week prior. But I think that it's enough that people are wanting to keep those next couple of games. For your team, that will generate a lot of wins.
I'd rather get ETN than Swift.
ETN for me isn't super exciting as a guy to own.
But that's the right kind of guys we're going to look at for Bowers.
Right now. Bowers, like if I'm moving on from Pollard, like I want to replace him.
I would consider Pollard for Henderson.
With like a Swift.
You could probably pull that outright.
Now, I do think, despite him having tremendous weeks over the last several weeks, I do think that a guy that I am targeting on your team specifically, and again, you can look at schedule and you can feel how you want to feel about this, is a guy like Kyren. Okay? Kyren has been getting... That's an
expensive pull now.
No, it's not. Kyren has been getting a stable amount of touches, and he's been getting targets, which he hadn't been getting a lot of in the past. And he's been buoyed by touchdowns in the last 2 weeks. Okay. Mm-hmm. From week 1 to week 4, he only scored 2 touchdowns. In the last 2 weeks, he scored a total of 3 touchdowns. Kyren is a player that you could potentially sell the name of Brock Bowers, plus give him Tony Pollard and maybe something else. Okay. To get into Kyren, if that's a piece that you like. You look at the Rams schedule moving forward, and I don't think that it's not a super tremendous schedule, but these are going to be very competitive games. And I think right now buying Kyren, again, he's had 2 fantastic games in a row. It might cost you a little bit more, but it's not going to be at the level of your Jacobs, your JTs, because people are still, but the fact of the matter is that we still, Kyren will need more value than that. You're absolutely right. But he's a guy that I want.
Here's the thing, Nick. You got the wins.
As I want.
You might I think I'm going a different direction. And I think that Bowers and Pollard can pull this off today. I think I'm pulling the trigger on Bucky, and I'm just rolling the dice on the injury. I think that because if Bucky hits, you win your league. If he doesn't, well, then you're just going Genty and Warren the rest of the year, and that's not the end of the world there either. So that's probably where because I want to go for the home run to win the whole thing. And Bucky's playoff run is amazing for fantasy playoffs.
It's interesting.
That's probably, knowing you're 5-1, I'm probably looking Bowers and Pollard, because that should be able to get you Buck. Hell, maybe even Bowers by himself could get you Buck.
But I wouldn't, Nick. I wouldn't trade Bowers into Bucky. I get what Joe's saying about that, but I want to use Bowers as kind of a last resort additional piece and shop him around, because people know that the injury is lingering more than it needs to be. When he ends up coming
back,
enough
receivers if he needs to do that.
When he's coming back, so Raiders bye week. When's the Raiders bye? So the Raiders bye week is week 9. That is the same bye week as Tampa Bay. So when I look at this and I say, like, all right, what pieces do I want to get into, right? Well, these are pieces that I'm thinking about because you're 5-1. Emeka Egbuka. If I'm selling Brock Bowers, I would want to sell him into a guy like Emeka Egbuka. Both guys are hurt. I'm okay leaning on Tucker Kraft. Harold Fannin might be on the waiver wire insofar as it might be the case. If I'm moving Brock Bowers is hurt, Emeka Egbuka is hurt. You can easily see someone willing to swap that depending upon how they feel about Emeka Egbuka or Brock Bowers. Brock Bowers is closer probably to playing than Egbuka is, right? So when I look at it and I say, okay, that's a piece that I really want to think about. Guys that I'm wanting to think about as well, right? See how much Mike Evans is going to cost you. The waiver wire is poor, sure. But I think Tucker Kraft is going to.
He needs a running back. You give him another receiver, it doesn't really matter to him.
Right. I get what you're saying, but if you have Emeka Egbuka, if you trade Bowers into Egbuka, you have Emeka Egbuka potentially coming back and healthy, then I can move on from a guy like Cortland Sutton, pair Cortland Sutton.
So what you're doing, Sutton and DK to try to get into a running back? That trade rarely happens.
Or DK plus Pollard to get into another running back. Right?
See, I think you're better off just doing Bowers. If you knew Bowers outright for Bucky, which I think you can because the
that doesn't help right now. I get it.
He doesn't need help right now. He's 5-1 with a stacked roster.
I get it, but I'm worried about that injury to Bucky a lot.
No, I get it. That's the risk of it, but if it hits, you win. And that's how I'm at here.
And that's fair. Guys, I think those are, and we can talk more about this too on Monday, Nick, and you can leave a message in the chat of this video once we go offline if you want to get a little bit more. It did go down to 42 last night, Nick, by the way.
And Bloody Bones, no one wants to see the Monroeville Mall.
The Monroeville Mall's not that nice, Bones. If you could teleport here for 35 seconds, that's enough time to go into the Monroeville Mall. It ain't nothing. You're really not missing anything.
Jesse, if I were you, I would not move Rice for Henry. Rice is the catalyst your team needs to get to the playoffs. I get that you want Henry, but I would do the trade you mentioned before on Tuesday to try to get there.
Yeah. Carlos, I'm contending and have 3 2026 first rounds. Should I give up one for Devonta Smith?
No. It's too up and down.
He's up and down, but it depends on what your roster is, Carlos. You can leave your roster in the chat of this message after the video, after we go offline, because we're going to be hitting the road very, very soon here. But I wouldn't. I think I'd save those 2026 first to package them up for somebody more valuable than Devonta. If I could give up a couple of those to get into something better than Devonta, I think you could, and that's what I would consider doing. Jason, I will watch my stuff. Thank you as always. Yes, I was bored at work and decided to talk to you guys. We appreciate it.
Love
Jason.
it, man.
Nick, thank you. Have you guys seen the movie Next 3 Days? I have. And you want to know the problem with that movie, Nick? You watch the Next 3 Days, and the geography is all wrong. You cannot use that bridge and go to the Pittsburgh Zoo. You also could not go from that.
Oh, is that the one with Russell Crowe?
I am absolutely unequivocally
positive. That's the one where Russell Crowe steals his wife out of jail.
Let me see. Yes, it is. And the geography
That's a good
is
movie.
all wrong. You cannot
It's a
walk
good
from
movie.
that
Geography's
building
wrong as could
to the
be.
other building.
You also lived across that bridge for your whole life, so
Dawn of the Dead is a great movie. Great movie. And there's a
you guys
museum.
have evolved. We got to bounce.
There's a museum up there in Zelienople that is worth it to visit at all. I think if you're a big Dead fan. All right, guys, we appreciate the love. We'll be back on Monday, 3:45. Good luck in all your leagues. If you have a question for us over the weekend, leave it on this video. We will be sure to check it. We appreciate all the love. Like, follow, subscribe on Monday.